The Institute for Faith and Freedom at Grove City College presents Meet the Scholars with your host, Senior Student Fellow Grace Riley.
Hello and welcome to Meet the Scholars. My name is Grace Riley, and today the Institute for Faith and Freedom is happy to welcome Dr. Luke Conway. Dr. Luke Conway is a professor of psychology at Grove City College, and he is a fellow with the Institute for Faith and Freedom. He is an author of over 85 articles, commentaries, and book chapters, and his work has been featured in a variety of publications, including The Washington Post, The New York Times, The Huffington Post, Psychology Today, USA Today, and the Ben Shapiro podcast. Dr. Conway, thank you so much for joining me.
It's an honor to be here, thank you.
So just to start, what brought you to Grove City?
I was on the job market for various reasons, some of which involved the fact that academia, higher ed, is a disaster. I had a job at a Research One institution, the University of Montana. Things kind of went south there, and so I was looking for a new home. What brought me to Grove specifically was the moment I read its mission statement, I knew this was the place I wanted to be. It was a beautiful statement of freedom, but also of Christian values, which is rare in the country. So it emphasized, I wanted to be at a place that honored Christ, that unapologetically worshiped Him. But I also wanted to be a place where I was free to explore what I wanted to do. And Grove doesn't get into the weeds. It doesn't tell me what to believe about specific issues, but it's a very Christ-centered place which focuses on basic Christian truths and on the person of Christ. So that's what drew me to Grove initially. And I wasn't sure until the moment I stepped foot on campus and started meeting people. Meeting the students helped when I was on my interview. It was just such a beautiful, lovely place. The campus is gorgeous. I love Western Pennsylvania. I could go on. And
I can second that as a student. We are so fortunate that Grove City holds those values, because it's rare not only on a college campus to find that nowadays, but just in general in everyday life to find people and institutions that align with those values. So certainly very well said. And from that, you study psychology and your focus is social psychology. How is faith incorporated into that and into your classroom?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have a kind of plumber model of this. I think if you teach someone, say you have a Christian school for plumbers, and they come into your school and you teach them about theology, but you don't teach them how to plumb. I don't think that's very effective. So if they go out into the world, say, and someone calls them to go do plumbing, and they show up and they tell them about Christ, but they leave their leaky sink unfixed, that's not very good. That's not a very good witness. So my philosophy is in part, first of all, to teach the basic knowledge of the field. I view that God wants me to educate the students for the reason that they're paying for my class. Within that said, I do want to integrate sometimes controversial material into a Christian perspective. So we take time to pause sometimes and think about, what does the fact that this particular perspective suggests that we don't have free will mean for the Christian perspective? How do we think about that? How do we put that into a biblical point of view? So I think both are important. I think it's important to teach the basic knowledge of my field, to place it integratively into a biblical point of view.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's real life. So for students, that certainly is very applicable and useful going from college to then into the real world. And that is something Grove City does a good job equipping people with, that you're here for a while, which is great, but then you're going to go out into the world, which is a lot different than the community that Grove City so fortunately has. And just going off of that, you've written a few articles about political polarization. What can you say about that from the lens of social psychology and how that applies to our current political climate?
That's a great question. I mean, we're kind of a mess right now. I don't know if you've noticed.
I'm sure everyone has.
Yeah, and I mean, data support that. Empirical data suggests that our country is the most polarized in terms of its increase in polarization of almost any country studied. Like, we're falling apart at a rapid rate. People are just kind of going into their corners and shouting at each other without reconciling their differences. What social psychology suggests about that is interesting. We have a model, a social psychological model called the agreement paradox model, That model basically suggests part of the reason we're in this pickle is because we want agreement. We actually don't like the disagreement. If you ask people in the country, what do you want? Very few of them say, I want to sit in a corner and be shouted at. They actually want to come together. There's still a yearning for people to come together. So why do we get there? Well, that yearning gets so strong that we want to force agreement from the top down. We want to kind of take away people's freedom, force them to all agree on whatever position it is. It turns out that when you do that, it has terrible research suggests three things. If you try to do that from the top down, it works. People will say yes, okay, I agree, or whatever. Up front, they will say that. Behind the scenes, it won't build long-term agreement. It causes them to feel reactance. They get mad. They don't like it, even though they do it. It causes them to distrust that any real relationship they form is real, something we call informational contamination. They don't trust what they're seeing. And so I think part of the reason we're in this pickle is we tried too hard to force agreement on issues rather than just saying what social psychology says, it's okay to disagree. The founding fathers had a better vision. It's all right. What they were doing was not so much to force agreement, but to provide a mechanism by which everybody could disagree respectfully and in a godly way. So I think that's probably the main message that I would say about social psychology is agreement is not love. We have this idea that agreement and love are the same thing. That's just nuts, okay? Actually, love begins where agreement ends. Jesus talked about loving people even though you don't get anything from them. Well, you don't get anything psychologically from someone who disagrees with you. They don't validate your ego. They don't okay? But we love them anyway. Love is not agreement. And I think if we get back to respectful disagreement, not ashamed at all as Christians to disagree, but doing it in a Christ-like loving way, we can really lead the way. And social psychology would back that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell me about what projects you're working on now and where people can find these?
Yeah, so our lab, including a bunch of undergraduates at Grove City College, is currently exploring the consequences of political polarization in a 10-nation study. So we're interested in the question, can you predict political complexity from the leaders of a particular nation from the political polarization of the people, the citizens? So as the citizens hate each other more across political lines, do the leaders become less complex? The early data suggests they do. You can get this and our research on other areas, including authoritarianism and cognitive complexity on my Google Scholar page or on my ResearchGate page, or follow me on Twitter if you want.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for tuning in to this episode of Meet the Scholars. We're so happy that you listened, and please make sure to check out the rest of the Institute for Faith and Freedom's work on our YouTube page and website, and also be sure to check out Dr. Conway's work. Thanks so much, and see you during the next episode.